Welcome to Immaculate Heart of Mary Church in High Point, North Carolina. This video is intended to be a guide for our lectors for Sunday liturgies. It may be of some use to other parishioners in other churches. We ask that all of our lectors, when they arrive at church, to please go to the minister's sacristy and to sign in the minister's book in order to let the liturgical coordinator know that you are here. Upon signing in, if you would please go into the church and take a seat in one of the first 5 or 6 pews on the left side of the church, from where you will approach the sanctuary when it's time for you to read. If you are the first lector assigned, and there is no deacon scheduled for the Mass, it is your responsibility to bring the book of the Gospels in during the procession. You would wait at the head of the aisle for the celebrant to give you the cue that the procession is ready. The book of the Gospels should be held at forehead high with the spine in the right hand. When approaching the ambo, the book should be placed in front of the ambo with the spine to the left. The lector then returns to his seat. At the conclusion of the opening prayer, or in the case of the 9:30 liturgy, after the children have been dismissed, the lector will stand and approach the sanctuary and make a slight bow to the altar and take his or her place at the ambo. It is appropriate to pause for 5 or 6 seconds before beginning the reading and establishing eye contact with the congregation.
A reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. For Zion's sake, I will not be silent. For Jerusalem's sake, I will not be quiet, until her vindication shines forth like the dawn, and her victory like a burning torch. Nations shall behold your vindication, and all the kings your glory. You shall be called by a new name, pronounced by the mouth of the Lord. You shall be a glorious crown in the hand of the Lord, a royal diadem held by your God. No more shall people call you forsaken, or your land desolate, but you shall be called my delight, and your land established. For the Lord delights in you and makes your land his spouse. As a young man marries a virgin, your builder shall marry you. And as a bridegroom rejoices in his bride, so shall your God rejoice in you. The word of the Lord.
At the conclusion of the first reading, the lector should remain in the ambo and wait for the cantor to approach the sanctuary via the ramp. Once the cantor has gotten up the ramp, the lector can step back, allow the cantor to take their place at the ambo, and exit via the ramp. If there is only one lector for the liturgy, after the first reading, the lector should take a seat next to the altar server, and at the conclusion of the psalm, rise, take your place in the ambo, and begin the second reading. Should there be two lectors present for the liturgy, the second lector should rise from his seat at the conclusion of the psalm, approach the sanctuary with a slight bow to the altar, and take his or her place in the ambo, remembering to pause, and before beginning the second reading, make eye contact with the congregation and begin.
In reading from the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians, brothers and sisters, there are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit. There are different forms of service, but the same Lord. There are different workings, but the same God, who produces all of them in everyone. To each individual, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for some benefit. To one is given through the Spirit the expression of wisdom. To another, the expression of knowledge according to the same Spirit. To another, faith by the same Spirit. To another, gifts of healing by the one Spirit. To another, mighty deeds. To another, prophecy. To another, discernment of spirits. To another, varieties of tongues. To another, interpretation of tongues. But one and the same Spirit produces all of these, distributing them individually to each person as he wishes. The word of the Lord.
Note, please, that the second reader places the lectionary underneath the ambo in anticipation of the reading of the gospel. The lector will then remain in the ambo waiting for the intonation of the Alleluia. Once the Alleluia is intoned, the lector may leave the sanctuary via the ramp. If there is no deacon assigned to the liturgy, the reader assigned to the second reading is responsible for doing the prayer of the faithful. Upon conclusion of the Apostles' Creed, the lector should rise from their seat and approach the sanctuary as usual. The lector should then wait until the opening prayer has concluded by the presider, and then begin the petitions.
Our response is, Lord, hear our prayer. For all those in the ministry of lecturing and delivering God's word, may they do it faithfully and spiritually. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer. Upon conclusion of the last petition, the lector should remain in the ambo until the concluding prayer is completed by the presider. Then he or she may exit the sanctuary via the ramp. few reminders for our lectors. It is vitally important that each lector who is not able to fulfill their responsibility be sure that they find a replacement. If you are unable to find a replacement, please contact the other lector assigned and ask them to please do both readings. Failing that, please contact the director of lectors in order to find a replacement. This concludes the guide for lectors at liturgy at Immaculate Heart of Mary here in High Point, North Carolina. We're grateful for the ministry that all lectors provide us, and we wish them all the best in the future. Thank you.